Counties ahead of this weekend's winter freeze. We'll discuss the latest weather updates with Matt Moreland, meteorologist-in-charge of the National Weather Service, Houston-Galveston. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also be joined by Houston Mayor John Whitmire, who will give us the latest updates on what the city of Houston is planning for this weekend's winter storm.
And I'm Ernie Manous, plus Nerdtropolis founder Sean Tajipour will join us to share his thoughts on the Oscar nominations as well as the films to watch out for in 2026.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us 713-440-8870 or email us talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking the purple box.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A powerful winter storm is having an unusual impact. It is affecting up to half of the U.S. population. Officials from at least a dozen states have declared states of emergency, from Texas to New York. NPR's Amy Held reports power outages could be widespread and long-lasting.
It's been quite a while since we've had a storm of this magnitude impacting such a large portion of the population.
Meteorologist Frank Pereira points to a trio of hazards: snow, topping a foot in parts, ice, enough to snap tree limbs and power lines, and deep cold. Philip Jones is with the Nashville Department of Transportation.
The ice is a lot more treacherous. We'll have different emergencies to deal with.
Jacqueline Thorpe in North Carolina worries for her husband, whom she says needs access to life-saving care.
I pray that the power don't go out, and I'm praying that they have some type of emergency assistance where they can come, because he cannot go without dialysis.
Even before the worst of it, airlines had already canceled hundreds of flights. Amy Held, NPR News.
Minnesotans opposed to sweeping immigration and customs enforcement operations in their state are mobilizing a day of mass protests under frigid temperatures. Clergy, labor unions, grassroots organizers, and many businesses opting to close are describing today's action as an economic blackout. They're urging Minnesotans to refrain from shopping, working, or going to school. The Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul have become a national symbol of state and local level resistance to the Trump administration's approach to illegal immigration. Well, federal immigration officials are disputing reports today that agents targeted a 5-year-old who was with his father, suspected of being in the U.S. illegally. Marcus Charles, acting executive associate director with ICE, released this account today.
Arias fled from law enforcement on foot, abandoning his child in the middle of winter in a vehicle. One of our officers stayed behind with that child while other officers apprehended his father. After conducting the arrest, my officers stayed with the child. They cared for him, took him to get something to eat from a drive-through restaurant, and spent hours ensuring he was taken care of.
Charles says the child has not been separated from his father. Local school officials said the 5-year-old was among 4 minors recently detained in Minnesota.
All right, March for Life. Now you know the chorus. You sing it loud with me.
People are gathering for March for Life demonstrations in the nation's capital this afternoon. Vice President J.D. Vance is among the prominent figures expected to speak at the event opposing abortion rights. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 227 points at 49,156. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Governor Greg Abbott has declared a state of disaster for more than 130 Texas counties in advance of the expected winter storm this weekend. Nim Kidd, chief of the Texas Division of Emergency Management, said 15 key state agencies have mobilized to cope with the storm.
If you have to look for a way to stay warm, if you don't have heat at your house, our local partners have already assigned more than 280 warming shelters across the state. We'll have that list on our website. We ask you to share that as well. Those will open and close, dictated by the locals as needs come.
Abbott said the state's power grid has been greatly reinforced since the widespread outages of the winter storm in February 2021, but he warned residents need to expect local outages due to the weight of ice bringing down trees and power lines. Applications for Houston ISD's pre-kindergarten school choice program are now open through April 17th. The district is hosting 3 one-hour virtual information sessions next Wednesday. News 88.7's Bianca Seward has more details on the application process.
Families who live in the district can now submit applications to the nearly 160 early childhood education programs in HISD. The full-day programs are open to kids who will be 3 or 4 by September. The options include Montessori and magnet schools, as well as dual language pathway programs in Spanish, Mandarin, and Arabic. Parents can submit a list ranking up to 10 programs they want their child to attend. If there are not enough seats for interested students, HISD will run a lottery to determine placement. The programs are free to children who are homeless, economically disadvantaged, or part of a military family. Otherwise, tuition is roughly $6,700 for the year. A step-by-step application tutorial is available in English and Spanish on the district's professional development YouTube page. I'm Bianca Seward, News 88.7.
CenterPoint is bringing in additional workers ahead of this weekend's winter freeze. The utility company says it's also testing its equipment and trimming trees ahead of the storm. A map of power outages and estimated times for when service would be restored can be found on CenterPoint's website. It's 63 degrees right now on the University of Houston campus. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Good
morning.
Are you getting ready for it?
I am.
It's so funny because today is going to be so different than Monday when it's 20 degrees outside. It is going to be
Is it going to
dangerously
be
cold.
20 degrees outside?
And we got to get there. We got to get through Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Finally, we get to Monday. But it's going to be one heck of a winter weekend.
I'm looking forward to the positive end of it. The cool, the being together with friends and family, the socializing differently when it's cold, which I really love. I'm not looking forward to the issues, the troubles, and the problems people are going to face. So when I do speak romantically about the cold time, don't think I'm forgetting about all the
Part of your romance includes internet staying on and electricity staying on.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, well, of course, that's called cuddling.
And I want to go back. It's very interesting to me because I think that that's the thing about our area in Southeast Texas. In Colorado, it's been a slow ramp up. They get these types of, bam, it's here. We're having a winter storm this weekend. It's 80 degrees today, winter storm tomorrow.
You're exactly right, which also makes it a very hard forecast challenge.
Right.
You know, in Colorado, if you've had sort of winter weekend after winter weekend, you almost get practice and know what's coming. Here, we don't get a lot of practice. It just shows up on the door. It's like your in-laws. When are they going to get here? How bad is it going to be? And when are they going to leave?
Good thing I like mine. Good thing I like mine. Shout out to Sherry and Lee Sherman. Love you guys. No, but you know, Frank, that's true. You know, oftentimes we look to you guys and we're like, okay, and then what happens if it gets a little bit chilly? It's kind of like,
well, I think the Arctic air is a given. I think that's on the way in. All the models have been consistent. And the models have been pretty consistent on the winter precipitation. The European hasn't veered much from Wednesday. The American is still pretty much on the same as it was. And we use the North American model called the NAM, which is a more micro model. It really kind of digs down a little bit. And if that's to be believed, then let's just say the odds are in our favor that we won't have too many winter precipitation issues. That's saying if the models are to be believed. You know, I used to have to forecast without models, Ernie. You know, 1982 is when I started. We didn't have models till the late 90s.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with what you just said, but it's a similar idea. Back when we used to watch in the 60s, if you've seen those clips and stuff, and they're showing the big screens at NASA as they're showing where the spaceship is and all that stuff, that was all drawn by hand on frames and put up on the projector. It was not computerized. It was not moving in real time. It was images drawn and moved in. That makes me think about you forecasting the weather.
People used to be right there with their pencil and their hurricane chart to listen to where the hurricane was, the lat and the long. And then, of course, Bill Clinton came along and his Freedom of Information Act let everybody see the the models, and everybody gets to see what they see. So there you go.
Well, you know what I did last night? Speaking of freedom, I went to the first Freedom Art an event, and it was a screening of a documentary all about American artist Arnold Freeberg. And it was so interesting to me because it's not an artist that we know a lot. It's an American artist, and he did a lot of art about Americana. And anybody that's been watching the news, we kind of see what's happening, obviously, in Minnesota. And yesterday just kind of, for me, felt very heavy. And, you know, we were watching the documentary about this incredibly talented man. You know, he was a man of faith. He loved his country. He served in World War II. And it was interesting because one of his most famous pieces of art is the Prayer at Valley Forge, which shows George Washington, you know, he's kneeling by his horse praying. And the way Arnold Freeberg described it, he says he really wanted to portray Washington kind of holding the burden of the weight of our country in his posture. And that stood out to me so vividly because I felt like yesterday as a country we were almost carrying the weight of our government.
Well,
and it was a very
metaphorical, but I'll take that.
Documentary and event last night, but you can find it on Amazon Prime if you're interested.
You know what? A lot of people are going to be hunkering down this weekend, and they just might be interested.
Yes, Amazon Prime.
You got to have something to watch.
Yeah, and like you said, as long as your internet stays up and your power stays up, you can watch all of this.
I'll tell you, it's nice to have experts joining us today on what is going on, and I think we could go to our first
headline. Should I get into the headlines?
Get into the headline. That'll take us right to our first guest.
Yeah.
Governor Greg Abbott has issued disaster declarations for more than 130 counties as a significant winter freeze moves into the state, the one that we have all been monitoring and discussing. Forecasts show temperatures across much of Texas dropping into the low 20s starting today, with some areas potentially falling into the single digits through Monday. Here in the Houston region, temperatures are expected to dip below freezing late Saturday into early Sunday, with overnight lows in the 20s Sunday and Monday nights. To walk us through what to expect, how severe this system could be, and how long the cold may stick around, we're joined now by Matt Moreland, meteorologist in charge of the National Weather Service, Houston, Galveston. Matt, welcome back to Hello, Houston.
Hi, Matt.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Great to see you guys again.
Yeah, well, you're the man of the hour, Matt. So what do we got? Walk us through this in day parts. Tonight, tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon.
So I'm going to start actually with the cold because as normal, we have a lot of focus on the ice, but I want to talk about the cold. And the models have been, that's the thing that Frank was talking about, the models earlier. They've been really consistent on the cold and actually really trending even colder with each day. And for Houston, we're looking at dropping below freezing initially Saturday night, kind of from northwest to southeast. So the north and west sides of town would, drop below freezing toward midnight, late evening, midnight, and then southeast side of town toward sunrise. And at that point, it will stay below freezing most likely until about midday Monday. So that's about a 36 to 42 hour duration right there.
Matt,
we even have some models keeping it below freezing Monday now. So we're starting to, Monday's actually starting to trend a little colder. Then we're going to see within that a very cold night Sunday night, another very cold night Monday night, and possibly Tuesday night as well. Both Sunday night and Monday night for Houston, we're looking at lows of 18 to 24. And I can... if you want, I'll move over to the ice thread as well.
Yeah, I want to explore a little bit on the temperatures to make people understand that 24 or below for 2 hours or more is considered a hard freeze. That is considered pipe bursting freezes there, especially if you get to 20. 20 is a magic number for busting a pipe. So I want people to understand that, to get their pipes in good shape. We were even saying yesterday a good Pampers or a Huggies makes a good pipe wrap. So that I think is important to note. And then making sure that you have all of your prescription medicines, because you may not be able to get out in any of this as we go into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So there were models taking us to 34, 35 Sunday afternoon. Are you discounting those now that we won't get above freezing?
Yeah, I think it's, some spots could get up above freezing an hour or two Sunday, but it's looking less likely at this point.
Okay. Wow. I'll let you move into the preset part of this now.
I'll mention the wind. I forgot to mention the wind chills. Those are really significant. So Sunday night, we're now talking about wind chill values in the single digits. So that's like the feels like temperature. That's how it feels on your skin. That's really rare in Houston. We have not seen that very often. And north of Houston, we're talking about below zero wind chills now.
While you're on that, Matt, I would make a note that that's really for any sentient being. I mean, obviously dogs and horses and cows have more hair than I do, but that's still, they are still affected by wind chill.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the pets, like, you want to keep your pets inside as much as possible through this event. Also want to check in on the elderly and those, vulnerable family members as well. Are they okay? Can they come stay with you for the duration of the storm? That type of thing.
While we're still on temperature, I'm just curious. Inner city, in my mind, I have this idea warmth is radiating from all the concrete in the buildings, and so the temperature stays warmer. Is this a fallacy or is there truth here?
It's correct. Say Houston's 18 to 24, the inner city is probably going to be closer to 24. That being said, downtown, you're going to have more wind. I live pretty close to downtown now, so it's like, it seems like the wind makes up for it, even if it's a little bit warmer there.
Yeah, it bounces off those buildings.
Yeah.
And does wind chill matter when we're talking about the freezing point? If it's 37 degrees, but a wind chill that brings it to 30 degrees, is that then considered freezing, or does the actual temperature have to be 32?
For the freeze, it's the actual temperature. Wind chill is more like how it's affecting you on your skin, basically.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's move to the precipitation. We're going to be freezing by late Saturday night, and we could be freezing all the way into Tuesday is a possibility. So take us through the precipitation with those temperatures and what that means, not only for Harris County, but I think it's going to be a little different from the Woodlands North. So if you could separate those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with Houston area. So we'll start to see, we expect as the temperatures drop below freezing into Saturday night, Sunday morning, we're going to have kind of a second round of precipitation then. So we do expect late Saturday night through Sunday morning, we're going to get freezing rain in Houston, up to 1/10 of an inch accumulation possible. I think the best chance of that is north and west side. But as you've seen from some of our previous winter storms, all it takes is a very small amount of freezing rain, and you're going to start to ice over the bridges and overpasses. We have a lot of elevated highways in Houston. Same thing. We could see some sleet mixed in as well, especially north and west side during that time. Sleet, freezing rain, it's going to have the same impact on travel. It just creates icy roads. And if, most those icy roads will probably stay iced over all the way into Monday morning. Now, north of Houston, it is going to be worse. Montgomery County, we higher confidence of 1/10 an inch or more of freezing rain. And then up in the piney woods of East Texas, even toward College Station, or north of College Station, we could see up to 1/4 inch or even more. And that's where you start to see the trees and power lines come down. And I think for a lot of East Texas, North Texas, Northern Louisiana, this is going to be a historically bad ice storm up there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what it looks like.
And so for us, it seems like it's more ice potential and cold potential. But
that's right.
Yeah, but maybe not as severe, not as far as the limbs and the power lines. We may not have to worry about that.
Yeah, not as much. The weather related, those coming down, not as much in the Houston area.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with meteorologist in charge of the National Weather Service Houston Galveston area, Matt Moreland, who's giving us the latest weather update. If you have a question or comment, you can give us a call or text 713-440-8870.
You know, when you talk about all that and where we're going to be affected and not affected, keep in mind, as we learned on yesterday's show, just because your immediate area might not be as heavily affected, we are such an interconnected state now with power sources and all of that. In other areas, if things go down or have problems, we can feel the impact here. So just if we have it easier than some areas doesn't mean we're necessarily going to have it easier.
True. Yeah, I think so. Matt, I don't want to get too geeky with you here, but you know, we've had some discussions about the European model versus the American model. I know you're looking at those, and a lot of people don't know about the North American model, the NAM, which is a pretty reliable model for getting it a little tighter and a little more high resolution as far as forecasts. Does the National Weather Service, do they just use what's known as the blend of models, or are you using a particular model?
So we, you know, one thing that we're really doing in the Weather Service is we're shifting toward probabilistic guidance. And it used to be, and Frank, you were talking about earlier, having to forecast without models.
Yeah, that makes me
or we might have had one,
a hero.
You know, it was very
An
hard.
icon, Frank.
That's right.
That's right. You got to be old to remember that.
A relic.
But now that we, you know, we can bring all this guidance together with the probabilities rather than we have this abrupt change from forecast to forecast that we used to have. Now we can show the trends, and the trend has been upward, both for cold and ice potential. We do think that, you know, we've been looking at how cold it is in the Midwest. Like it's in the, we have wind chills in minus 50s in Minnesota today.
Mm-hmm.
We do think some of the models are too warm with this system.
Wow.
So that has definitely factored into our decision making. But we're really taking all the guidance into account.
Just a guess here, Matt, but did this cold air originate in Siberia as it often does?
I think so, yeah. In Alaska, it sat, I mean, parts of Alaska were below zero for like 6 weeks straight. So while we were having a pleasant 80-degree Christmas here in Houston. It was Alaska was in the deep freeze for several weeks, and now that cold air is all dislodged to the
from
southeast.
Russia with love, as they say.
You know, Matt, we
That's
had
right,
you
yeah.
on Hello Houston when you first took up this position. Now here we are. You know, we saw something very similar. We're not exactly sure if it weather-wise similar, but we've had a winter storm last year where Houston had snow. One, I would like to know how you started preparing for this in this new position and what that conversation for you looked like, that experience. And then two, if this is now going to be something that should be on every Houstonian, every kind of our area where we know we're going to get a winter storm once a year.
Yeah, so we started ramping up, you know, really it was on Monday. You know, we were all messaging, you know, Monday was a holiday. So we had, you know, I think we had 2 or 3 Mets here that day. And we started messaging each other like, this is starting to look bad. And Tuesday is when we first started putting messaging out to the public and our core partners. And what we're doing on the inside is we staff up. So we, you know, we set up we have extra staffing here all the way through Monday set up now. And we actually started purchasing emergency supplies, and we're, you know, obviously this side of town, you know, maybe going to be less severe icing, but still, you know, there's going to be some icy bridges and overpasses down here. We're down in League City, by the way. Mm-hmm. You know, we started purchasing emergency supplies. So we already had cots, but we purchased more bottled water, all that stuff. And that prepares us not only for this event, but for the upcoming hurricane season as well. The good thing is, as a team, we ran through training this past winter, and Frank mentioned this earlier. It's really challenging in Houston. Actually, you all brought this up. You know, it's like we just get hit, bam. You know, we don't have time to spin up. We don't have time to prepare. We don't have multiple events to test things out. Mm-hmm. You know, we get our 1 or 2 big events each winter, and that makes it extra challenging. And so, each winter we've got to go through training here as an office to make sure we're ready for the event.
Yeah. We are going to take a pause. Matt, you're going to stay on the line with us. We do have Houston Mayor John Whitmire joining us right now via phone. We would like to welcome him to the conversation. Mayor Whitmire, welcome to Hello Houston.
Sure. Thanks for asking.
So, Mayor, I guess the very first...
Who is I listening to?
Celestia Sherman.
Ernie Manous?
No. From League City.
That's Matt Moreland, who is the National Weather Service meteorologist-in-charge.
Well, tell him he ought to be in Houston.
Well, he's listening to you. We've got him on Zoom
What the
still.
hell's he doing in League City? This is where it's happening.
Matt,
Yeah, that's right.
would you like to respond to the mayor?
No. Hey.
Yeah. Well, our office name is Weather Service Houston Galveston, but I hear you.
Yeah, I know. Everybody wants to live off Houston. I got it. I work on it every day.
Mayor, I guess where we need to start is how comfortable are you with the preparation for the city at this point?
I'm very confident. I have probably the best team in America. Lots of experience. Brian Mason has been in the emergency center for years. Our fire chief, I discovered him during the storms running the emergency center. So now he's our fire chief. Homeland Security is former Chief Satterwhite, our first responders. But I can't say enough about Public Works. Randy Maka is a can-do person. So we have all hands on deck, and the city is prepared, and we're continuing to get more prepared. But we have to monitor the weather, as the gentleman just mentioned. Frank, you might appreciate this. I've got 3 weather advisors, one being obviously the National Weather Service, and you get 3 different opinions.
Well, that's weathermen for you.
Well, I understand.
Opinionated.
So it makes my job difficult because I want to gather information, and when I go public with recommendations, I want it to be current, accurate, honest, transparent. And I will do that at 4 o'clock today. And I will tell Houstonians the message is be cautious, because city has done everything we can, and we will continue to work around the clock. But now it's time for Houstonians to do their part. And that means preparation in the next 24 hours for a very hard freeze, possibly moisture creating ice. So we're all geared up, fired up. I'll be at the emergency center all day tonight. I've got to run to Clear Lake for a gala with their economic council, but I'm working around the clock. We've got the best team in place. Generators have been tested. We've got all of our multi-service centers opening at 5 tomorrow for warming centers. 4 of them have backup generators. I was shocked when I got in office and found out that our multi-service centers, which we refer to people to for cooling or warming centers, had no generators. There is a schedule to put generators in all of them in all of our strategic locations like fire and police. We'll have 25 state troopers in reserve here in case lights went out. During Beryl, we found out the neighborhoods without power were very vulnerable to crime. HPD did their very best, but we need a backup. So public safety, treating the streets, taking care of pets, which I'm going to call Houstonians for the next 4 days. We are ready, and it comes from experience, relationships, working with the county, state, and all of our resources, including the gentleman that just spoke.
Right. Well, Mayor Whitmire, there are 12 warming centers opening tomorrow at 5 p.m. Last year, about 1,300 people sought shelter during the snowstorm. Is the city expecting more or less this year? What do you think the capacity is going to be? And what should people expect if they're looking for bed, food, and showers?
Well, we have a new health director, which happens to be Dr. Tran, a medical doctor. And she is a no-nonsense director of health. She will make certain, in fact, you saw the little flare-up when she wouldn't, her advisors shut down the food for, help me, what's the name of the food test about 2 weeks ago because it didn't meet certain temperatures. Mm-hmm. We will be protecting everyone in the warming centers. There will be sufficient space. We are focusing on the homeless. We're going under bridges, urging people to come out, go to these warming centers. We will feed them. And they'll be open 24 hours a day, until Saturday at 5 to sometime Tuesday morning. So
Really?
that's our focus. Obviously, pipes. People have to prepare for pipe bursting. It will be a really, the consensus is, after listening to all the resources, is we are going to have a severe winter blast, lowering the temperature. We hope we don't have that much moisture when it comes Sunday morning. It could, but I'm hoping everyone will get off the streets. I'm going to ask them at midnight Saturday. You know, our mothers did tell us nothing good happens after midnight, and this applies to tomorrow night. Sunday morning, I hope it clears. We can get to church, but don't be fooled by some clearing on Sunday afternoon. Sunday night's going to be below freezing. We may have over 30 hours of freezing weather. So,
Mayor, really quickly, I want to go back to what Celeste was asking. What is the capacity of the heating centers and stuff? Do we know an exact number of how many people it can serve?
I don't have an exact number. All I know, I've been through storms worse than the one we're going to experience. No one's turned around. It's a large number.
Okay.
It's in the neighborhood. People need to get there before the freeze gets here. But if they can't get there, we will help them with Metro Lift.
And that's what I was going to ask you, Mayor. You know, last year you expressed frustration with the homeless people who refused to go to warming shelters.
Yeah.
Since then, there has been some state laws that have changed. SB 1164 made it easier to involuntarily admit people to care in cases like this, which the city, you know, celebrated that. Do you think that this power will be used this weekend to try to get people into warming centers and shelters that perhaps will refuse to go on their own?
Well, first of all, it's a matter of using compassion and experience and reason with these individuals. I will be out on the street with caseworkers. Some people just absolutely, due to their mental health, refuse to go to a shelter because they're paranoid, schizophrenic. That's a serious problem of mental health of our homeless. But we will maneuver. We will talk to them. If they just refuse, we'll take resources to them in the form of a sleeping bag and blanket. A lot of folks don't want to go to the shelter because of their pets. Pets are welcome in our warming centers. And I just told you a moment ago, we want to treat our four-legged friends like Houstonians. And I'm going to ask HPD on patrol to be looking out for animals that are being abused. It's against the law to tie a dog outside, and that will be enforced. So, yes, we're ready. And the exact number, I don't know because I've never counted the capacity, but we have more capacity. If you go to Northeast last winter, there were 10 people at the facilities. The real demand is at the Fondy Center and the Multi-Service Center on West Drake, where the homeless largely gather. But we have to cover the entire city due to the service that they deserve.
Mayor, are you able to work with the Harris County Office of Emergency Management on all of this?
On a regular basis. We're in constant touch with them and all of the commissioners and the judge. So we share information, but the State Emergency Center is in constant contact. What do we need? What are our resources? TxDOT's doing a great job of preparing the roads. Now, a lot of that will get washed off if we get the kind of rains they're talking about tomorrow. Obviously, we're in contact with the school district. HISD is more of a challenge because Mr. Miles thinks education is an essential service. And no one can disagree with that, but I don't want a child standing at a bus stop in 8-degree weather or an 8-degree chill factor. So we still got a little work to do there. I've got to monitor it very careful about city employees on Monday. We're looking to see if there's ice on the roads. We do take our work at city serious, so I might allow folks to come in at noon. But, you know, I don't want to do a shout-out to me. It's the team I've put in place. Experience, honesty, and dedication matters, and we're well situated.
Mayor, quickly, I saw flying around on social media, and I'm not sure if it's factual or not, about all city services being closed down on Monday already. Did you make that call yet, or do we know where we are at on Monday?
No, that's just more some clickbait or whatever you want to call it. I've got a word for it, but I'm not going to use it. No, it would be impossible on Friday afternoon to predict what we need to do responsibly Monday. That'll be made over the weekend. Let's get through one night at a time. As I said, Sunday, there's some indication that it'll warm up enough to be mobile. Maybe I need to go to church. I need to go to church to get through this job. But anyway, let's plan on Sunday giving us a little relief. But I'm going to emphasize, Sunday night is going to be bad. Monday night could still be bad. But as I've said, I've got weather advisors, meteorologists saying, oh, it's going to stop in Montgomery County. Then I've got another one that's going to go to the Gulf, and Houston will suffer 8-degree chill factor. So I've got to use my best judgment to protect Houstonians, and that's what I intend to do.
Mayor Whitmire, thank you very much for joining us, and we will continue to monitor all this with you, and I hope you'll keep us well informed.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, and let's get through this storm, and then I want to come talk to you about all the other misinformation that is thrown around.
We want you to come.
Misinformation.
We've been trying.
Talking, in all due respect to my friends at the Chronicle, nobody's talking about a property tax increase. More clickbait. But anyway, don't get me riled up.
We'll see you on the warmer side.
Well, we're ready for you to join us. Thank you, Mayor Whitmire.
All right, we're back with Matt. Thank you, sir. We're back with Matt Moreland. Matt, we still have a few questions, and one of them that comes to mind is that the Weather Channel has long ago started naming winter storms. This one is Winter Storm Fern. The National Weather Service has ignored that nomenclature. Can you give me the reason why the Weather Service doesn't name winter storms? And if it was up to you, should they?
So I don't see us changing that practice. Now, why we don't, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it largely has to do with just, it's really hard to define a winter storm. It's like a hurricane. You can see it, it's a solid entity on satellite and all that stuff. Winter storm, if northern Michigan gets a little bit of ice in January, is that a winter storm? Well, for them, they probably don't see it that way.
Got it.
Do we get anything down here, we're going to view it as a winter storm. So I think that's part of the reason we don't name them. That being said, that I think the famous 2021 event was named Uri, and I think a lot of people refer to it. I don't think there's any problem with that for these really big, memorable events. That if it makes it more remembered, I don't think there's any problem with the name.
Going back to what we just heard from the mayor, any thoughts, reactions to any of that? Anything you want to add to it?
No, I will say we've been briefing. So we are doing 4:00 p.m. briefings with City of Houston officials. That the mayor was part of that yesterday. So we will be briefing him and his emergency management team each afternoon. Plus, we have a close relationship with Brian Mason, and his whole team there, the head of the emergency management department. So, the Office of Emergency Management for City of Houston. A lot of times we are always either briefing them or sometimes even deployed in person there for both major storms like this and also, unplanned weather support for unplanned events, for example, the marathon.
Matt, we'll all come up for air on Wednesday, but the models indicate we may be in for another winter blast next weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to ask about that.
I was
sort of cautiously looking at it. We are seeing a signal possibly next Friday or Saturday, another round of cold weather, maybe even a wintry precipitation threat. We're probably not going to start messaging that until we're out of this one.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
So we probably won't start focusing on that till we get everybody through this event. Hopefully we're still, well over a week out. So hopefully we'll see the trend, the models trend away from that.
Yeah. Both you and Frank can probably address this for me, but I'm curious, and I heard this being talked about on the news today and hadn't thought about that this cold that we're getting has to do with a shift in the polar vortex. I never thought about it. I don't understand what that is, how that works, how that affects, and why things now are different than they used to be. I'll let you start off, Matt, and then Frank, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, so I am in no way an expert on this, but there's a theory now out there. I'll call it a theory, some research going into it, that as the planet's warming and the poles are warming even faster, there's a theory that it actually makes the jet stream buckle more easily buckle, and you get these surges of cold air more easily come south, and they get trapped as well. So Frank, I don't know if you want to add to that.
You're absolutely right. I think global warming, especially over the last few years, like Celeste said, we seem to have a winter event every year now. Mm-hmm. And we went 10 years that I could tell you, from 97 to 07, without a winter event. But we're having one every single 2023. We did not fall below freezing. But other than that, we've been seeing freezing weather almost every year for the last 5 to 8 years. And the global warming signal is there with extremely hot summers. So if you put all that together, Matt's right, that warming pole, that and if you've been following the Greenland thing, you may have seen the maps where the ice in Greenland was shrinking. Right. It came back a bit the last year, but it was shrinking. So you've got this warm pole, which causes the polar vortex to buckle down to the south, which allows this Arctic air to move all the way to the Gulf Coast.
Right, and that's interesting, right, is that we talk about weather events, but what we're speaking about, what we're expecting this weekend is usually considered an extreme weather event.
Correct.
And that's the big question.
Well, as I've always told you, climate is what you expect, weather is what you get.
Yeah.
And it looks like our climate is changing. Do you agree with that, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the temperature trends, it's basically upward in Houston. Certainly summers. The last 2023 was our hottest summer on record. And then the last 2 years were our warmest falls on record. And we had something like 16 record highs in November and December. We also had the latest 90 degrees as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the most part, the temperature trend in Houston is upward.
Well, I guess I bring it up just for people to understand that there is science behind why these things are happening, and that as these things shift and change, we're seeing the impacts of these more cold waves coming through us.
Like Celeste said, we're seeing the extremes.
Right.
We've had, I think, Matt, we probably had more memorable tornado outbreaks over the last 4 years.
Right. But are they extremes, or are they becoming the new normal?
Well,
is this where we're trending?
I don't think we can answer that, Matt. Do you think we can answer that?
Yeah, not with confidence at this point.
or perhaps that the extreme is that Houston, it used to be one of those things that our area would get snow every couple,
decades.
Right now we're seeing it. Last year it happened. Now again, potentially this year we saw obviously what happened in 2021. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure.
And the whole state. Which, speaking of which, Matt, I think I know the answer to this, but advice for people that may be traveling this weekend, either west to San Antonio or Austin or north to Dallas.
Yeah, I'm going to just say not recommended. I mean, this is really Dallas-Fort Worth. This is going to be a absolutely historic storm for them, both cold and ice. And even Waco, Longview, Tyler, and really, you're going to have significant icing down to Austin, San Antonio area. So my recommendation is, if you had plans to travel over there, is to not do it.
Okay. On the other side, let's talk about Galveston. A lot of cruise ships come and go on Sunday out of the port of Galveston. What are your thoughts about the causeway staying open and people able to get in and out of the island?
Yeah, the causeway, there is certainly the potential for icing on the causeway starting Sunday morning, from Sunday morning all the way to Monday morning. The potential is there. So,
So if you have a cruise, you got to get on Sunday afternoon. You might want to go Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday during the day, it's still above freezing, Houston Metro. So, yeah.
Matt, I think that may also answer my question. If you're planning on being somewhere hunkering down for this whole event, when is the last point you should be getting where you're going? If you're staying in the area, but you want to get home.
I'll stay for Houston, I would say like late afternoon Saturday.
And then stay in from that point forward.
Well, I'm emceeing a gala Saturday evening.
Well, you can't go,
from
Frank.
6 to 10. And we're going to have, it's Crohn's and colitis, and we're going to have it regardless. So just wish us luck.
I was going to say, you were going to MC.
No, I'm going to.
Frank's doing it. Even if no one else is there, Frank's going to be standing up there.
But Matt, we want to thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. Matt Moreland is the meteorologist in charge of the National Weather Service Houston Galveston.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for being a friend of the show, Matt.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
Leo Flores from TxDOT will be joining us at the top of the second hour, and we will continue to monitor school districts. You can also head to HoustonPublicMedia.org for any of the latest coverage on the winter storm. But right now on Hello Houston, coming up after this break, we will talk with Nerdtropolis founder Sean Tajipour about the Oscar nominations and films to watch out for in 2026. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold Brewing Company, proud supporters of Houston Public Media. Right now, with your $60 donation, you can choose tickets to News and Brews. This member-exclusive event takes place February 17th. Enjoy a pint, connect with fellow NPR fans, and meet the Houston Public Media newsroom in person. Select News and Brews tickets when you donate at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Ideas that define Greater Houston, and we do it live on the air weekday mornings at 9 on News 88.7. But we know you're not always available then to listen, so subscribe to our podcast wherever you get yours, or find each day's program to stream online at your leisure at houstonpublicmedia.org. And reach out with questions or comments anytime. Email us at talk@houstonmatters.org.
Support comes from Belmont Village Senior Living, committed to enriching the lives of seniors through daily programs, custom care, and hospitality in assisted living and memory care. 2 Houston area locations. More at belmontvillage.com/Houston.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston System, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, after a new episode of Party Politics at 8, encores of Ken Burns' 6-part series, The American Revolution, began at 8:30 with Episode 1. Tonight on TV8 or stream on the PBS app.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Well, yesterday, the nominees for the upcoming 98th Academy Awards was announced. You'll probably recognize some of the films anyway. One Battle After Another, Sinners, Marty Supreme, Frankenstein, just to name a few. This year's ceremony, which will be held on Sunday, March 15th, and be hosted once again by Conan O'Brien, will bring together the biggest names in Hollywood for a single night to honor the best films of 2025. Additionally, this year's ceremony will also introduce a Best Casting category. Oh, for the love of...
Because they needed one more
They
award.
needed one more. Okay. It makes it the first new Oscars category in over 20 years. To share his thoughts on that and more in this year's Oscar nominations, help us break down the big movie releases coming up in 2026, we welcome back to the show Sean Tajipour, founder and editor of Nerdtropolis. Sean, you big nerd. Welcome back to Hello Houston.
I'm excited to be back. I think this is the first time all three of y'all have been here together. Every time I come in, one of y'all want to leave, and now...
Well, we
I have the trio that I've been waiting for.
Get the
We
full
heard you had
effect.
ping pong balls today, so we all showed up for them. I guess where I would start with all of this is there's all the talk out there is about Sinners breaking this record, 16 nominations, most any film has ever gotten. Before that, it was 14 nominations for 3 other films, but this one, even if you take out the Best Cast category, it still would have had 15 nominations, which would have been something there. My problem with this is, does this speak more to the great success of this film or the poor state of films across the board that there aren't that many to pick from, so fewer films are getting more nominations?
Yeah, maybe.
So that comes down to opinions. There's no right or wrong answer on this. A lot of people are agreeing with you, saying maybe the films that are coming out weren't as great, but you've got a good field, right? You have really great stuff, mind-blowing stuff, and then you have some middle-of-the-field stuff too, but also very popular as well. But when it comes to Sinners, the winner here is Warner Brothers.
Right.
Because they got 2 major films here. And it really comes about what the studio is seeing and what they want to put out there. I think Paramount shut out, Sony shut out, but now you have Neon and Focus Features with their films. And so you're really seeing, and Netflix on top of that, talk about that merger. So they're going to be like the big awards winner right there. So I think it comes down what the studio sees and really what they want to push. Because Netflix, we can't ignore, is doing great stuff. They got K-pop Demon Hunters and obviously Frankenstein as well.
Well, that brings me to what qualifies a film to be able to be nominated for an Oscar. It doesn't have to go to a movie house.
It does. Doesn't it have to play at least a short? I think it has to have a period in a theater.
I believe it has to have a small window because I believe K-pop did, or Frankenstein. But don't hold me against that. We got to ask the Oscar people there.
Well, like Frankenstein wasn't in the theaters a week and a half.
So it has a small window. So the Oscars, I'm sure, have some type of minimum qualification for being in a theater, because K-pop did as well. Demon Hunters got to theaters and did really well.
And they did. I mean, they blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
But the thing is about K-pop Demon Hunters, one, it was really well, like the music was just incredible. And so it was really well, I think, marketed to many different age levels. And I know a lot of parents were like, well, I'm not sure the name. I'm not sure if that's kid friendly. And then we would watch it with our kids and we're like singing. And then when it came out in the movies, they did a sing-along. So what do you think we all did? We went to the sing-along.
I mean, you can't go wrong with Golden. I mean, Golden is... You don't love it, but when you have it on, you're like, this is actually really great.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
want to go back for 1 second. Yes, for a film to qualify for the Oscars, it generally must show in a commercial theater. Current rules require 7 days of either consecutive or non-consecutive run in a commercial theater in one of 6 qualifying U.S. cities, which are Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Miami, or Atlanta.
So a quick premiere, and we're off to Netflix.
At least 7 days.
Wow.
And then it can be a Netflix film.
So you have a favorite this year, Sean?
I do. The funny thing is, the Best Picture, one of the films is actually one of my favorites. I was like, it got nominated for Best Picture? I was surprised F1 made this list.
Everyone is.
We were chatting about that. F1 was kind of, but a lot of people said F1 was made for this award ceremony.
See, like, regardless of that, I'm a car guy, right? But like, so I loved F1. That is obviously my favorite theater experience, watching that IMAX. But my favorite film of the year is One Battle After Another, experiencing that in IMAX. So really, that's really where my votes are going. For the Critics' Choice, that's really where my votes were going.
Over Marty Supreme.
Yes, unfortunately, even though I have all these amazing
Marty Supreme ping pong balls.
We did get a YouTube comment from Sean Radigan who says, casting matters. Colonel Danvers in One Battle After Another was perfect. What do you think about that, Sean?
I believe it. I mean, it might not sweep everything, but it's well deserved. There's a lot of surprises on the awards that it's winning in other award ceremonies. But it's hard. You got Team Sinners, you got Team One Battle After Another, but at the end of the day, that's just Team Warner Brothers.
And to just explain what cast, the Oscar for Best Cast is, it's talking about the collective. It's kind of like at the Screen Actors Guild, or what we're calling now the Actor Awards. They don't give a Best Picture, they give a Best Cast, where everyone together shows a level of quality that deserves recognition as opposed to pulling out single
So is
people.
this new category replacing Best Picture?
No, and it's still Best Picture for the Oscars.
Okay, so then what is it all about, Best Casting?
The best casting is, did they put together the best group of actors? Because sometimes you'll see a film and there's a standout, and then everybody else like, so this person gets that award. But you look at the film, you're like, yeah, but everyone. But there are those movies you go to see that you're like, Everyone was on point. Everyone hit it. It may not be the best story. It may not be the best directed, but that cast came together and gave you the story you wanted to see.
It's like a dream team, right? The dream team.
Well,
Yeah.
did they push this?
This was a new one.
Yeah, I mean, who cared enough about this to get it all the way to the top?
Well, it looks like Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, and Sinners, because they all got nominated.
They want to
for Best
acknowledge
Cast.
the people behind the scenes, because you do have, the casting director that does do a lot of the heavy lifting to make the film successful.
True.
And then you say another one's added. We're also going to get stunts added at some point next year. You're going to continue to add more categories because a movie takes a lot of people, a lot of departments, and they want to recognize everyone's hard work. When you stay for the credits, if you do, which I do recommend, you'll see all the hardworking people that deserve recognition.
So many people.
And on YouTube, The Truth 9457 says Oscars expanded the Best Picture nominations a while back, so they included some blockbusters like F1. Accurate?
Yeah, they went up to 10 nominations to get more variety in there.
10 nominations.
Yeah, isn't that what we
A
have
bigger
this year?
field, yeah. And I think it's much better to kind of widen it as well, because you don't want to shut out just anyone and everyone, and also give a chance to other studios.
Well, can you speak to this? My understanding is that when you're nominated for an Oscar, there's a campaign not only to get you nominated, but to get you the trophy, that they really push. We want your vote. We want like billboards in Hollywood saying, vote for Timothée Chalamet or vote for this picture. So it has become and it's been happening for years. So it's not newly political, but a lot of people don't realize that.
It is, but at the end of the day, I'm looking forward to upsets because that's what makes it exciting, because you can do all that hard work. Something's going to surprise us, I feel like, this year.
And don't
Wicked? Wicked.
Shut
Is
up.
that
Wicked
gonna
got
be-
snubbed.
Totally.
Really quick, I want to go back to Best Cast just for a second to say that the award does go to the casting director who cast all these wonderful people. It's not like all the actors go up there and all get awards.
Well,
It's
I was
the
going to say
casting
there are
director.
also bonuses in contracts. If you get nominated for Best Actor, you get a bonus. If you win it, you get a huge bonus.
Oh, really?
It's just like basketball, if you do get so many rebounds
And
at the
that's
end
why
of the
they
year.
campaign. That's why they're on the phone. Hey,
Bonus,
vote
yep.
for me. Vote for me. Vote for me.
Okay, Wicked we were just talking about, got shut out, everything.
It
Is
got
that a
shut out.
surprise or did we expect that?
Kind of expected it, because I believe, if I recall, Dune 2 also got the same treatment,
it did.
because it's a continuation of, it's a part 1, part 2 film.
Right,
so they
but
kind of see
didn't
as one.
wasn't the old tradition, though? Part 1 comes out, so you wait till part 2 to give the rewards and all that after the entire
Well, the
experience.
whole environment of the Oscars is changing. They're trying to make it more transparent, make it more understanding, and you're not going to win everyone over with their decisions. And I know a lot of people that obviously love Wicked are kind of like confused why, but we're like, hey, it happened to Dune for us, so sorry, Wicked.
And voting-wise, are we on that rank voting? Is that how it works now, that you list your 3 top films, and when they look at it, at least for Best Picture, and so it's not necessarily like everyone votes and the most that get it. If your vote didn't get it, gets recirculated.
I believe they use a point system, I think, for the nominees, or I think they still do it for the final voting. I'm not aware of how they calculate the stuff at the end, but also there's a lot of questionable stuff that still happens with the Oscars that they're trying to be more transparent about. Everyone keeps making fun of the Oscars, even though it's a very prestigious awards. But sometimes the type of nominees that show up, not much diversity. There's a lot of talk still to continue to make it better every year. Like we talked about, castings added, stunts are added as well. So they're just trying to make it more cohesive.
Biggest surprise for you this year?
Oof. Biggest surprise, nothing yet. I'm waiting to see the result. I think everything is fair game. I think
so. Nothing snubbed, nothing that got it you thought didn't deserve it, something that did deserve it
so
didn't get
maybe
it.
a couple of movies I wish that did make it was No Other Choice and Rental Family. I thought those were 2 amazing films. Technically, maybe international for No Other Choice. Rental Family, obviously, it's American film, but obviously it takes place in Japan. Stuff like that.
So how long do you think before we see a completely AI-generated film? The actors aren't real. The story's been written by AI. The backgrounds are AI. Everything about it is AI. And then we need another category.
You won't see that ever in a movie theater, but you will see it on your phone on YouTube. That will never allow that. I believe that's
I may have seen it already in shorts on my
That will
phone.
never
Thoughts?
allow that. That's interesting.
Quickly, thoughts on Train Dreams?
That is a movie that people are surprisingly haven't heard of it, but getting so much praise. Highly recommend it.
You haven't heard of it?
No, a lot of people haven't.
Oh,
I'm
I
saying
was
a lot of
like,
people haven't
maybe
heard
you
of
haven't
it.
heard.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But it's a beautiful film, and it's getting so much praise. Well deserved. Netflix has a lot of gems, and so we really need Netflix to push these films in theaters a little more, longer than 7 days, and really shine a light on some of these special films.
I like your ping pong balls. You think Timothy's going to win?
That'll be a nice surprised but well deserving. Not a surprise as in he doesn't deserve it, but it's his time is now, I think.
Sean Tajipour is the founder and editor of Nerdtropolis. Sean, thanks for joining us on Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, we're going to continue discussing today's top stories. We'll also be joined by board-certified physician Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Asia Society Texas, presenting the Bank of America Women's Leadership Series, Women Powering Energy, featuring women executives from ExxonMobil, Phillips 66, and Archaea Energy, January 28th. More at asiasociety.org/Texas.
We have a 30% chance of showers today. Good day to get out and do that last-minute preparation around your house. High today, 67, low tonight, 52, with a chance of showers likely again, and then that increases later to a 70% chance. 63, and this is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, TxDOT's Leo Flores will join us to give us the latest on road preparations ahead of this weekend's winter storm. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also be joined by New York Times bestselling author Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who will tell us about her new health book, the Forever Strong Playbook. She'll also be accompanied by former professional racing driver Danica Patrick.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, we'll also share a rundown of things happening this weekend, whether you're planning on going out before the storm or for when you're hunkering down at home. Join us for our regular Friday feature, Last Minute Plans.
And we want to hear from you, so give us a call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is abruptly halting a policy of terminating federal disaster workers. That coming ahead of a massive winter storm that's triggered states of emergency in at least a dozen states. NPR's Lauren Sommer has the latest.
FEMA relies on thousands of disaster workers to respond on the ground when storms and wildfires hit. Those workers are on 2 or 4 year contracts, which generally are renewed. Recently, FEMA has been terminating employees whose contracts are up, something disaster response experts say could hurt the agency's ability to respond. On Thursday, FEMA abruptly stopped that policy, according to an internal email obtained by NPR. The Trump administration has been critical of FEMA and is working to overhaul the agency. In a statement to NPR, FEMA says its disaster workforce is designed to fluctuate, but did not respond to questions about whether the termination policy would be reinstated after the winter storm. Lauren Sommer, NPR News.
The administration's touting a trio of initiatives during appearances at today's anti-abortion rights March for Life rally, including an expanded Mexico City policy aimed at curbing federal funding internationally for efforts supporting DEI or gender equality, ending the use of human fetal tissue in NIH-supported research, and a newly launched fraud investigation, COVID-era funding into Planned Parenthood affiliates. Trump addressed the crowd in a video message.
We have stopped forced taxpayer funding of abortion at home and abroad. We're championing faith-based adoption and foster care and supporting our parents by investing $1,000 into an account that will grow over time for every newborn baby.
Vice President J.D. Vance and House Speaker Mike Johnson are scheduled to speak at the event. President Trump has renewed his criticism of NATO, telling Fox News he was not sure if the alliance would be there if the U.S. needed. His suggestion that NATO forces, quote, stayed a little off the front lines in the war in Afghanistan sparked outrage in the UK. NPR's Fatima Al-Kassab reports from London.
Trump's comments suggesting NATO troops avoided the front line in the war in Afghanistan have been condemned by politicians across the spectrum in the UK. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called on Trump to apologise.
I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling. And I'm not surprised they've caused such hurt to the loved ones of those who were killed or injured.
One veteran, Ben McBean, wrote on social media, "As I sit here with 2 limbs missing, friends gone, it's infuriating to hear this come out of Donald Trump's mouth." Soon after the 9/11 terror attacks, the UK joined the US in its invasion of Afghanistan. This remains the only time a NATO member has invoked Article 5, which says that an attack on one member is an attack on all. Fatima Al-Kassab, NPR News, London.
It's NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Preparations continue for this weekend's storm. Eric Berger with Space City Weather told Houston Matters this morning that there's a chance for rain Sunday morning, which could cause problems on the roads because of the temperature drop occurring Saturday night.
And the real question then, of course, is what are the temperatures like at sunrise on Sunday and through the rest of the day? Because it's possible that some of that rain that falls Sunday morning will be freezing.
A hard freeze is expected in the region beginning on Saturday night. Northern parts of the greater Houston area will likely experience the greatest impacts. That includes Montgomery County. Judge Mark Keough says the county has been coordinating with TxDOT as the agency treats road services.
But it's not guaranteed in any way to be safe, especially during these icy times as the temperatures drop and it becomes more and more freezing. So you must exercise caution. And I would encourage you, go nowhere this weekend, if at all possible, unless it is an absolute emergency and is unavoidable.
Keough says the county will be opening warming centers this weekend, with the locations and operating hours to be announced later today. Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller is advising Texas residents, both in rural and urban areas, to take steps to avoid burst pipes due to the freezing temperatures.
Crack your faucets open, even the hot water. Actually, hot water freezes faster than cold water. Let those drip. Keep those cabinets open, especially those that have piping in them, so that they can not freeze. They need the heat of the warmth of the rest of the house.
Miller says that should include outdoor faucets for those who have them. He also says it's a good idea to wrap pipes for warmth if possible using foam insulation. Houston area school districts have begun announcing school closures for Monday, January 26th in anticipation of the storm intensifying over the weekend. School leaders are urging parents to check their district's website, social media channels, and the communications app Parent Square for the latest updates on their child's school. The announcement comes after schools across the area already canceled sporting events and other activities that were previously planned for this weekend. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
And we
We're
are
back.
back. Yes, second hour. Come on, very busy first hour.
Clarify for me. We got this just a moment ago.
Let's see if I can.
Well, it says that best casting nomination is it's not for the best cast, it's for the best job of casting.
Yes, we clarified that during the interview, but just to say it again. So there's a casting director. It's not always the director themselves. They may have people they want in roles, but there is a person whose job it is to cast everybody in a film. They're the casting directors. It's who you submit your films to, your auditions to, and all that. And so this award recognizes their ability to put together the right group of people for the cast. But I was talking about in reference to when you see a show where everybody is good, that's what it's being rewarded for. But the person that theoretically makes that happen is the casting director in conjunction with everyone else.
Thank you for that.
There you go, if that helps clarify it.
Yeah,
I realized when I said it, I was I was misleading because I then conflated with the best cast from the Actors Award, which was the SAG Awards.
So
Too much there.
Are you clear on the weather threat this weekend?
Well, before we get to that, I just want to say we got a lot coming up still on today's show because we're going to have Dr. Gabrielle Lyon here. And also with her is coming Danica Patrick.
Yes, former NASCAR racer Danica Patrick is actually one of Dr. Gabrielle Lyon's patients and has been working with her on health and metabolic.
And they're both going to be here.
They're both going to be here in studio to discuss one of the things that we know has been up for debate is these new pyramids. That
Food pyramid.
Yeah. The banana.
Yes, the banana.
I'm going to find out about my banana here because I don't know why that's at the bottom of the pyramid now. But anyway, that's coming up in the show still in the next hour. But now back to what we've been talking and spending a lot of time with because we have to. We're talking about the weather.
Well, let me tell you, Matt Moreland, the National Weather Service chief, Matt, he was saying that this big ice storm in North Texas could be historical. And I'm looking at the models, and they start their first wave of ice overnight tonight. Then they have more tomorrow afternoon. Then they have more tomorrow night. And then they have it on Sunday. And then it continues right on into Sunday evening. So it's a mess in North Texas. If you're thinking about going there, don't think about going there anymore.
Yeah, I was concerned because I've been trying to buy into where I keep saying, oh, it's 34, 36 degrees. It's not going to be as bad. We're going to miss the hit. And then after the first segment today, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm a little Pollyanna.
Well, the new models have just come in, and there is a chance that we won't see much more than rain and a few icy spots.
Right.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Well, you know who is not just keeping his fingers crossed, but taking care of issues. Celeste, take us into the headlines.
Yes, as this extended freeze takes hold, state officials are warning that the impacts could stretch beyond the forecast, bringing icy roadways, travel disruptions, and potentially dangerous conditions across Texas. With temperatures staying below freezing for multiple days, even light precipitation could create hazardous driving conditions, especially on bridges and overpasses. To talk about road conditions, preparation efforts, and what drivers should know before heading out, we are joined now by Leo Flores from TxDOT. Leo, welcome to Hello Houston. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
So, Leo, right off the bat, what should Texans, Houstonians keep in mind if they need to be on the roads?
Well, we always want to advise people to stay off the roads and don't go out unless they absolutely have to. But there are some people, first responders or medical professionals, people who need to get to work or need to get to go where they are needed. And so if that's the case, you need to look out for those closures, and you need to look out for reports of ice on the roads. TxDOT crews are working very diligently as we speak to apply brine throughout our Tier 1 and Tier 2 roads, our overpasses and bridges. So hopefully those precautions are taken to prevent that, but there's always that possibility. So just stay off the roads if you don't have to go out.
A question I asked in the last hour, I'll ask you again. If we're going someplace to hunker down and stay put, when's the last safe time to be getting where we should go according to what you're seeing?
Well, I think that tomorrow evening is when the possibility for the freezing rain and lower temperatures. So, you know, I couldn't give you an exact time, but that's from the reports I've heard when we should expect all of this to begin.
You know, Leo, something that we've been talking about on Hello Houston is how these type of extreme weather events are happening more regularly. Can you talk to us about the steps that the department is taking ahead of this freeze? What are you all doing to keep people safe on the roads?
Well, preparation is key. And I think the last year, when we had our last winter storm, that was a great success for us. And so just taking that same playbook and applying it to this situation, that's been very key for us. We've, over the past week, have kept up to date with the situation, receiving the reports from the National Weather Service. As soon as we know that this type of event is on the horizon, we start planning the logistics. So we started our brine operations yesterday. They continue on to today, and we'll continue to apply brine throughout our highways, roads, bridges, and overpasses as needed throughout the weekend.
Leo, what is in that brine that you put all over the roads?
It's a mixture of salt and water, and it just lowers the freezing point on where we apply it on the roads.
And any idea how much it costs? I mean, can you, like, I don't know, per dump truck full or per bridge or per mile? What are the costs and how are they calculated?
Well, I couldn't give you that information right now, but I can say that as of this morning, we applied 45,000 gallons of brine throughout the Houston area. So that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
When it rains, though, does that wash away the brine, or has the brine got something that holds it where it's supposed to be so that when the rain comes down and then it freezes, it is helping, as opposed to the rain washing it away and then it freezes anyway?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the rain can dissolve it, but that's why we're going to continue to apply it as needed throughout the weekend.
So how do you make your determination of where you actually spread brine?
So our roads are based on tiers. So right now it's going on tier 1 and tier 2 roads, all bridges and ramps as well. So you have your highest probability of ice on bridges and overpasses. So we start there and then of course go on to those tier 1, tier 2. So your interstates and your highways, those are all being treated because those are the highest priority.
Well, I know we're not expecting snow, but we don't have plows, do we? Even if we do get snow.
So, last year, the last snowstorm I mentioned, because it was a great success for us, we actually brought in snow plows from other parts of the state because we don't typically have it here. But we don't, as you mentioned, we don't expect that this time, which is why we didn't order any to be brought from other parts of the state. But we do have them, an entire fleet of them if we need them. Doesn't look like we'll be needing them this time around.
Leo, where should our listeners and viewers go to if they want to see closures or information about roadways and traffic?
So TxDOT Houston District social media profiles, definitely follow us there. We will be posting that kind of information. And then your local news. We report that information to them as well. So they're very instrumental in getting out the word. So follow us on social media, stay up to date with your local news for closures and reports of icy roads. TranstarHouston.org, that is probably the best resource. All of our closures and reports of road conditions are posted there on that website.
And if we ignore your advice and we get out there and we are in a wreck or we hit a tree or whatever we've done on the highways, what do we do? Who do we call?
Law enforcement, medical. If you need medical attention, call 911. But please don't. Please stay home. Stay wherever you are. Don't get on those roads. It's just too dangerous. I think agencies all over the Houston area, I think including the mayor and others, have all been saying just stay home. It's not worth it.
And it's Sunday morning, so it's probably be good at sleep-in time anyway.
Exactly.
I was speaking with a friend of mine who also grew up north, and we were talking about when these events would happen because of understanding that they would happen to us. Of course, there was the salting of the roads. There was also changing your car to what we called snow tires, which had better grip. Then there was also putting chains on your tires. We had things we could proactively do in that environment. Down here for folks, are there things we can be proactively doing if we need to be out and traveling that you would recommend?
Plan before you go. So monitor those social media, Transtar, local news to find out where those reports of icy roads are. When you are on the road, slow down. There's this thing called black ice that we've heard about. And basically it's just ice, it's clear, but you don't know that it's there because it takes on the color of the pavement below. And so you could be going at a high rate of speed, go over this black ice, lose control over the vehicle. So slow down. If you have to get out there on the road, slow down, maintain distance between you and the other cars. That's paramount if you're going to get out there.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think, are under the illusion that if you can make your way to the highway, you're okay, that the highways are going to be cleared and salted and big trucks will lead the way and you're okay on the highways, which, in fact, those are the worst, especially the routes.
Especially because you're going so fast, right? You don't have time to slow down. You hit some ice, you press the brake, but the car keeps going. So it's actually much more dangerous because you're going at a higher rate of speed. So,
are there certain areas you target? More importantly, we had a question that come in. Do you all target the roads around hospitals? So are you thinking about the emergency paths people might need, and are those getting the first love and care from you folks, or is it pretty much a general traffic need, as in number of folks traveling?
Well, so TxDOT builds and maintains the state roads. So it's going to be your interstates like 45, I-69, and then your highways like your FMs. So a lot of other roads, the local city and county will be having their own operation for. Right now, like I mentioned, our tier 1 and tier roads are the ones being treated. That's a lot of ground to cover. It covers a 6-county area throughout Houston, all of our bridges, all of our ramps. So the amount of coverage for this operation covers just about all of the roads within TxDOT's jurisdiction.
So to sum up everything you have said to us right now, we could sum it up, and everyone, just stay home if you can.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And thank you for your service. I know y'all are working day and night to keep us safe, and we really appreciate it, Leo. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Our crews are working hard out there.
Yep.
Leo Flores is with TxDOT. Again, Leo, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston. And we did get a question on YouTube about if we would be coming in on Monday. We will continue to be here and
one way or
another. The Hello Houston team will be here, as well as our news coverage. We'll continue to bring you the latest on the winter storm. You can go to HoustonPublicMedia.org for more information.
Yeah, all through the weekend there'll be coverage. Tune in.
Our news team is on activated. Yeah.
Well, and because Ernie asked this question, that there are resources on the weather page as far as hour by hour breakdown of temperatures. So, for instance, I can tell you that we're not expecting a freezing temperature at Hobby Airport until 5 a.m. on Sunday. So we keep saying that the freezing air will start to move in Saturday night, Sunday. Right. Well, if you look at it hour by hour, it's if you look at, say, 5 p.m. Or 8 p.m., 11 p.m., 5 p.m. is 42 degrees, 8 p.m. is 39 degrees, 37 degrees at 11. It doesn't actually reach freezing until closer to 6 a.m.
So you should be good
Sunday.
be cautious, but good through Saturday night.
You really should be.
When
that's one place. That's Hobby.
Okay, but when we
could be different in Katy or Sugarland, but it's not just going to suddenly drop off and be freezing at 11 o'clock Saturday night. And it's going to be slow. Like I said yesterday, it's molasses coming in, slowly getting colder and colder.
So I just don't want people to think, they keep saying that, we'll get where we're going later. Earlier you can get where you're going is better.
I would curtail it by late Saturday evening.
Yeah.
And then settle in for Sunday, and then we see where we are.
Yeah, like the mayor said.
Yeah.
That's right.
Take it one day at a time.
Yeah, we may be all right.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we're going to talk to best-selling author and physician Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and former NASCAR driver Danica Patrick. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
President Trump had been threatening to do whatever it took to take control of Greenland. But after major pushback from European leaders, Trump backed off his more dramatic threats. We'll discuss whether the situation has shaken his credibility with members of NATO. I'm McKay Coppins. Join Mo Alethi, Sarah Isger, and me for Left, Right, and Center.
Left, Right, and Center is coming up Sunday night at 5 o'clock.
This is Christopher Kimball from Milk Street Radio. How did mobster John Gotti get arrested? Well, he spent too much time in a diner.
John Gotti was a regular at Lindenwood Diner. He had a favorite booth that he sat in all the time when he came in, and the FBI bugged that booth.
Real stories from New York City diners. That's coming up this week on Milk Street Radio from PRX.
Listen Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from ROCO, presenting Quartet for All Time, featuring chamber works by Messiaen and more. Saturday, January 24th at Texas Southern University. Tickets at roco.org.
Ellen Benninghoven and Dr. Michael Schaefer, proud sponsors of Houston Matters with Craig Cohen. Tune in Monday through Friday at 9 on News 88.7.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
The question of what Americans should be eating continues to spark debate. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services, released the new federal food guidelines with the ideas that have drawn both interest and concern. To help us separate science from policy, we're joined by Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, a physician and expert in metabolic health and nutrition, and former NASCAR and IndyCar driver, Danica Patrick. Welcome, both of you, to Hello Houston.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. You know, Dr. Lyon, I interviewed you on Cold Coffee back in April of last year, 2025, about metabolic health and nutrition. And it seems that there has been a lot of changes since then within this space, or at least it changes from a headline perspective. And looking at these changes, what stands out to you as very well-supported research, and where should listeners and people be cautious?
First of all, these new dietary guideline changes have been the biggest win that I think that we have seen in decades for the health of Americans. And here's why. For the first time ever, we are prioritizing real whole foods and high quality proteins. What is also different about these guidelines is that the old guidelines relied a lot on epidemiology. Mm-hmm. These guidelines rely on many randomized control trials, so it's high quality evidence. The recommendations in these guidelines are backed by science, and that's what is so impactful, especially as we decide what are we going to eat and what are we going to feed our children.
Right, and that's the big one, is feeding our children, I think.
I would guess the confusion comes along in the way it was rolled out with the inverted pyramid, and people got confused. If you actually look at what is being said, it makes really solid sense what you're saying to eat now. I think the message got lost in the graphics and all of that. To help people clearly understand as simply as possible, how should they incorporate these new guidelines into their daily life?
Eat whole foods. High quality protein, and for a number of someone's like, well, how much is that? It's high quality protein at every meal, and this is things like lean beef, chicken, fish, eggs, dairy, and the number, for those of you guys who are interested in the number, it's 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kg.
That's interesting, but because, you're talking about protein, and I feel like something that we're seeing, anybody who opens up their phone is, you can get protein within donuts now. You can get protein shakes. You can get energy with protein. What is good protein to you?
What we're seeing in the landscape, again, you can go to a coffee shop and they say that they've got protein.
Starbucks has protein coffees.
I didn't want to call them out, but it's true. And it's
I'll do it for you. I'll call them out.
It's wonderful that we're beginning to think about it because it's the most important macronutrient. Yeah. Danica has been training forever, and since changing her nutritional plan, she's become fitter and stronger than she's ever been. Where we need to begin to really change the conversation and orient ourselves and our environment is to have high quality protein at least at that first meal. And that could be a whey protein shake. It could be Greek yogurt. It could be eggs. And the difference is the old guidelines prioritized grains. It was 12 servings of grains.
Right.
Now we're down to 2 or 3. It's a lot of common sense, but what becomes so impactful is we were talking about, what do we feed our kids?
Yeah.
What about the military? What about hospitals?
Schools?
Critically important. That is one reason why it's the biggest win. The guidelines inform what those that receive the federal funding have to comply with.
Danica, let me ask you about your relationship with diet and health, because we know you're a professional athlete, race car driver. We know that there were some health challenges that followed that. And then
That's where Gabrielle came in.
Right. And then you re-looked at your diet, your health. What was the big aha for you that diet was a key component?
Well, I think I fell into, I don't know how many people fell into the trap in sort of the late teens, like 16, 17, 18 time, where it was like, vegan restaurants and meat and things being, dangerous, and you should eat more of this and you don't really need that much protein. And like, I went for it. I tried it. And it was the least healthy I ever was. It was the least energy I ever had. It was the least satiated I ever was. And bottom line was I always felt better with animal fat and like eggs and steak and things like that. It always made me feel better. But I was like, oh, well, calories. Or I was like, oh, well, that's bad to eat meat, right? Then I felt bad for the animals for a minute, I went ahead and watched a whole bunch of really gruesome videos about slaughtering. And I'm like, I can't do it and be part of the problem.
Right.
But honestly, quite simply, it's either them or me. And that's the way I see it. I felt like I was dying without it. So yeah, that was part of it. Part of it was just shifting towards, and now if there's any two things I recommend to people, they're like, what do you do? How do you look? Eat your protein. Don't be stupid. Eat your protein and lift weights. I think so many people are afraid of lifting weights, and they think if they want to go get healthy or be fit, they go for a run. Forget it. That's for the birds.
It's interesting that you talk about lifting weights. I've had this conversation actually with Dr. Lyon about this, and my own OBGYN, where she's like, Celeste, there is this misconception about as women age, you don't want to bulk up. You need to start running and cardiovascular work for your heart. Talk to us a little bit about that. And I want you to touch on lifting weights. And I also want you to talk to us a little bit about VO2 max, because I'm hearing a lot about your VO2 max and weights.
First things first, if you pair the new dietary guidelines with resistance training, what we're looking at is a pathway to health because it impacts skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is the largest organ system in the body. It's not just for athletics. Danica and I have been trying to get bulky for the last 20 years.
Trying hard.
I can teach you how to get bigger.
I take double the recommended creatine a day.
It's not going to happen.
For the record, y'all are my height. Just want to put that.
It's never going to happen. And what we have to recognize is the old guidelines were always about what we have to lose. Oh, we have weight to lose. These guidelines are about what we have to eat and how and what we have to gain, which is muscle. Muscle is the focal point for women who are aging, and also these diseases like cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, type 2 diabetes. These are not diseases that begin in fat or obesity. These are diseases of skeletal muscle first. And when we prioritize skeletal muscle, everything else falls into place. And, I have a new playbook coming out, the Forever Strong Playbook, and it actually has how to implement these new dietary guidelines and how to train to support muscle health. It doesn't matter if you are a beginner, intermediate, or someone like Danica who's repping out pull-ups with a 35-pound weight. I'm just getting tired looking at her. But it's not about overcomplicating the message or the system. It's about understanding that once we get the foundation right and we are consistent with a game plan, a tactical game plan forward, that we can really move the needle.
I also like that the idea of this is what I need. How much of our life have we spent looking at all kinds of things like I shouldn't have it, I shouldn't have it, right? You need to be looking at dietary protein. You need to be eating high quality food and going, I need that. My body needs that. It's a mindset shift, and I really believe that's part of the sort of matrix of getting more healthy.
Let me ask, two questions come to mind hearing all of this. First of all, for folks who live a vegetarian diet, is there a way to get quality proteins in there still to still adhere to either vegan or vegetarian diet?
The steak.
Eat the steak is your advice to vegetarians?
The high quality, low quality, they're just terms, and they're biological terms based on the building blocks of proteins, meaning the amino acids. And without making it too complicated, animal-based products are considered high quality. Okay. High quality proteins with nutrient density, things like B12, zinc, selenium. Plant proteins are considered lower quality. They're higher in vitamin C and water-soluble vitamins and fiber. if someone is vegan or vegetarian, could they get the daily amount of protein that they need? Yes, absolutely. However, think about what rides along with those sources of protein. Plant proteins typically have a higher carbohydrate load with them. So for example, quinoa. I don't know if you go to the store and it'll say the protein power bowl and it will have quinoa. It would take 6 cups of quinoa to equal 1 small chicken breast from a protein perspective. It's not impossible to do it. I know many vegetarians. It just takes a little more effort, and you have to become very careful that your micronutrients are also met.
And one other question that I had was when we talk about diet and what we're consuming, a lot of folks have turned to, and I know this will probably be an awkward conversation, Ozempic and Mounjaro and all those things. It changes the amount you want to eat and the way you should be eating. Is there advice to folks that are on those kind of drugs of how to still have a balanced, healthy diet within that world?
To be clear, also, I don't think it's awkward.
Okay.
We prescribe, I have a medical clinic, it's called Strong Medical. We prescribe GLP-1s and they're here to stay.
Okay.
They're critical, they're important. We've never had something more effective in the landscape. However, if we are not careful, there was the obesity epidemic in the late 70s, early 80s that we missed. We didn't even think about muscle. We are at risk of trading the obesity epidemic for an epidemic of sarcopenia, which is, we've seen low muscle mass strength. We've seen our parents, we've seen our grandparents get smaller. And in order to prevent that, you must get resistance training right, which is, again, for those at home, you don't have to go to the gym. You can start with body weight, move to bands. If you want to go crazy, get a dumbbell program, a kettlebell program, but it's a non-negotiable. It's like brushing your teeth.
But nutritional advice for folks that are on there who suddenly have very less appetite, a lot of things aren't appealing to them. I think a lot of those folks aren't eating healthy anymore because they're just cutting food out altogether. How can you balance that?
And I was going to back this in by saying that you have to have that resistance piece with someone who's using Ozempic or some kind of GLP-1. But dietary protein is what we consider muscle sparing and lean mass sparing. That is most critical. And I would say that first meal of the day, whenever you have that, making sure you're hitting between 30 and 50 grams. If you are on a medication that decreases appetite, which these do dramatically, you have to eat protein first. It is the most important, essential macronutrient, and you have to focus on that.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, a physician and expert in metabolic health and nutrition, and Danica Patrick, former NASCAR and IndyCar driver. We do have a call on the line, and if you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or text 713-440-8870. Let's go to Chris from Cyprus. Chris, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your question for Dr. Lyon?
Hi. Could y'all talk a little bit more about the body mass index? One of the things that I don't know if they factor in is muscle mass versus fat, and adjusting, that proportionally with weight. So you could be a certain height, you could be a certain weight, but if it's muscle mass, then, I don't know if there's any way to kind of, differentiate, what's a healthier scale to kind of follow.
Chris, you have just uncovered the way of the future. Now, for those that are listening, BMI is really based on, again, it's the body mass index, and it doesn't differentiate really between body composition. So those with higher muscle mass typically have a higher BMI, which then could put them into an overweight or obese category. We typically don't use BMI. The next best way to identify body composition is really body fat percentage. That would be done with a DEXA, and that shows bone and fat and extrapolates the rest. So lean body mass is all grouped into one section. Interestingly, it doesn't measure skeletal muscle mass directly. Why do I say this? Because it's a glaring obstacle that we have. I don't know the optimal amount of muscle mass that would be important for Danica. I know what the challenges are if her muscle gets too low, but in terms of an optimal muscle mass, which is where we're going to get to, is going to be the way of the future. So BMI is not something that we look at. You could look at body fat percentage, but what if I were to look into a magic looking glass, I would say it's going to be the fat in the muscle that's going to be most relevant as we move forward. It's actually, is your muscle, does it look like a Wagyu steak, or does your muscle look like a filet?
I think for me, part of my training at the gym that I go to is every 3 weeks when we start a new training cycle, we in-body scan. And so, that's not a DEXA, which is harder to get to, I would imagine, because I've actually never had one of those before. But it gives you, once you do it consistently, it really gives you a measure of things. It gives you your body fat, it gives you your muscle, it measures all of that. So it gives you a percentage of those things that you're talking about. And so you can get access to that. So while there might not actually be an exact magic number, right? I mean, everybody is different, but you're probably looking to achieve the highest sort of body composition for yourself that you're happy with. And so if you start in-body scanning even just like once a month while you're doing your training, you're keeping an eye on things. So if you're eating less, are you losing too much muscle? Because you do need calories to come in to be able to build the muscle. So there's that like perfect zone that you're trying to hit where you're losing a little bit of fat but gaining a little bit of muscle if possible. And so something like an in-body scan at your local gym or somewhere could be something that you could do regularly that would help it keep track of it, to at least dials it in for you.
I will say, I go to F45, and at our local F45 gym, we do the in-body scan, and that was such a game changer for me, because the second that you actually start seeing your percentage of fat versus your percentage of muscle, and whenever you see that you are going up in muscle and you're bringing down the fat, it's interesting for me. I wasn't quite bringing down the fat as quickly as I probably should have been, which really meant that I wasn't zoning in on my nutrition.
But your body fat percentage was going down.
It was. It was going down.
And I want to say one more thing. Regardless of body composition changes, the simple act of engaging in exercise improves the health of skeletal muscle as an organ system.
And again, 713-440-8870. Let's go to the phone lines. Ashish from the medical center is on the line. Ashish, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Thank you all so much. I really love y'all's show. I'm a nephrologist, a kidney doctor, and I really appreciate your guest perspective. It's interesting. But one thing I just wanted to, as far as when it comes to animal-based proteins, I do see people, especially when it just feels like gyms push a lot of protein nowadays, especially animal protein. And I get patients who come in who have been eating more than 2 grams of a kilo of protein, where they end up having some kidney issues. And then the other fact I think is important for other listeners to remember is that these are great recs for people with normal health, but with people with other health problems, especially in my world, the kidney problems, even 1.2 grams of protein per kilo can be potentially harmful to the kidneys. And animal proteins sometimes are also a little bit more harmful to the kidneys when you have chronic kidney disease as opposed to plant-based protein.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. I would love to jump in here. So if we were to look at the data, the average American eats 300 grams of carbohydrates a day. The average female eats around 70 grams of protein a day, and the average male eats around 90 grams of protein a day. The average intake overall is 1.1 grams per kg, which means 50% of people are below that number. And when we talk about, is protein bad for the kidneys, I have not seen the evidence that that is so, nor have I seen the evidence that that initiates kidney problems. In fact, and there's been multiple meta-analyses regarding this. So I trained as a geriatrician, which means my fellowship was in individuals over the age of 65. And what we saw was that dietary protein intake actually improves glomerular filtration rate. And one more thing, all proteins are made of amino acids. The body doesn't know the difference if it is getting a plant-based protein or if it is getting an animal-based protein. Protein is made of 20 different amino acids. And so the idea that one could say, well, animal protein in particular is bad for the kidneys from a biochemistry aspect it doesn't make any sense. And I think it continues to be a myth. I was actually speaking to a nephrologist. He's a very famous nephrologist named Jason Fung. And he was talking about how in the evidence-based literature and in the nephrology world that protein recommendations that people haven't even been talking about that since, I don't know, for the last 10 years. And then one other thing, what we do see is that when individuals increase their muscle mass, that GFR and creatinine is not adequate, that you must get an additional marker, something called a cystatin C. And when that's corrected for, we see normal kidney function.
I do want to mention here that we understand each person is different, an individual. When we talk in these topics, they're more general than your specific recommendations. Always check with your medical professional before making any changes, but that we're giving you just some opinions and guidelines.
And one more thing that he said, what do you think damages kidneys the most? And it's type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is driven by excess carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm. And is there, it's a question for you, doctor.
I might have an answer for you.
So like, to play into that sort of matrix of problems, I've heard that muscle is a good glucose disposal. So the more muscle you have when you have a carbohydrate, it does a better job of processing it. Is that true? And like, would that be an indication that, people need to continue to gain muscle mass as well to help with that pathway?
Yes. If you want better metabolic profile, let's say you go to your doctor and they look at your triglycerides and your glucose and your insulin and it's out of whack. What you're really seeing is a mismatch between muscle health and nutrition. Muscle is the largest site for carbohydrate disposal, glucose disposal. And it's very important for a sink. As you said, it's this metabolic sink. It is the fastest way to improve those metabolic markers by increasing muscle mass.
Danica, I have a question for you. It's kind of an odd question, but after all these
Don't
years...
make it too technical over here. I'm going to have to shift the focus.
Very not technical. It's what keeps you motivated? After all these years, to continue to do this work, to stay as fit as you are, what keeps you motivated?
Yeah. Sort of integrity. Mm-hmm. It's baked into my personality to care. I don't really do anything halfway. So, getting dressed every day, right? Like if we're talking about eating right and lifting weights and body composition, like it's just nice to wake up and feel good. I also like to accomplish great things, and I like to work. I don't have to, but I like to work. And so the way that you have the best energy and focus for that is to dial those things in. That's why I think that pointing in the direction of kids and the food at school, like we're looking at an epidemic of ADHD and lack of focus and erratic behaviors and depression, and get the food dialed in. Like just like we're able to grow big and strong on fruit roll-ups, but imagine if it was, grilled chicken tenders and broccoli and some, white rice or brown rice, whatever your preference is, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that food with kids plays a big, big role.
And we have gotten quite a few comments on YouTube, and we have some questions, so I want to be sure to get to those as well as a caller. Alex Garza-Foto has a question for you, Dr. Lyon. She says, for women navigating perimenopause or menopause, how should they approach hormone optimization like HR2 to reclaim energy and prevent rapid decline?
It's a great question, and we are definitely seeing the conversation shift towards a female perspective, because for so long, women were not discussed in terms of hormones. After the Women's Health Initiative, everyone was kind of afraid of hormones. And the first thing is find a provider that you trust. And the way to do that is to get a recommendation from someone who is going through that and or has seen another physician. I would argue that, again, you have to speak to your provider, but hormones are generally considered safe. They just recently removed the black box warning, and this is going to now increase both the availability from a provider perspective and have less restriction for the patient, that you do have a choice and you do not have to suffer with going through perimenopause and menopause.
And again, you're listening to Hello Houston. We are talking to Dr. Gabrielle Lyon as well as Danica Patrick. If you have a comment or question, you can call 713-440-8870. Let's go to Angela from the Heights, who's on the line. Angela, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Hi, thank you for your amazing programming. I am a lifelong vegetarian, and what I follow is a diet for a small planet. And it shows how through different combinations you can get more amino acids than a steak But the good news is that it also has a ton of fiber and helps, keeping me healthy at my advanced age. But there's so much information in that book. It came out in the late 70s, and it sort of is, it isn't, but it is the Bible for true vegetarians to ingest enough protein to be healthy per your, what you're sharing, which is amazing.
Angela,
So
thank you for that. Let's find out what the doctor thinks.
So that was A Diet for a Small Planet. That's Francis Borlape's work. It's very interesting, and I think that really shot vegetarianism into the mainstream in the media. And first of all, for the caller on the line, it is amazing that you've been able to stick to a plan that works for your body. And I absolutely commend you for that. As it relates to where we are now in the landscape, amino acids, again, the amino acids in a steak are different than the amount of amino acids in broccoli. Through proper food combination, one can be successful as a vegetarian. However, if someone is not very active, you have to be very careful about the overall carbohydrate intake. And one more thing, we don't just eat proteins. We don't eat just saturated fat. We eat whole foods. And there are nutrients of concern like B12, zinc, iron. And when an individual is not extremely careful, and when they decrease their animal-based products, they decrease their, quote, nutrient density. And that's just something for someone who is listening that is perhaps not as advanced as this caller, that they just have to keep in mind.
What is the relationship between the amino acids and protein itself? Because when we're talking about high-quality protein, I feel like one of the things that I've also learned along the way is about the bioavailability of that exact protein. So does that matter if the amino acids are high and the protein's high, but the protein is not very bioavailable and you only absorb, let's say, half of it?
It does, which means you have to consume more, which is why it's challenging typically for vegetarians unless they're extremely careful.
But
well, just to follow up on that question, I'm just curious, when we talk about fiber and carbohydrates, people, I think, confuse the two. Yeah.
Yes. So fiber is, for the most part, you're utilizing it to be excreted, whereas carbohydrates, depending on the type, is metabolized fully, right? So not all fibers are digested in the same way.
Okay, so we also have another question. Actually, this one's about F1. I think we're gonna move. We're gonna move on. This one's all for
it's
you,
Oscar
Danica.
Season.
Yes.
Gabrielle, I thought this was for Gabrielle.
So
she's a very good driver.
Sean Radigan would like to know.
I gotta tell you, it makes me nervous with her in the front seat.
I bet. I was saying, who drove here today? No, Sean
She
Radigan
did.
would like to know, could you ask Danica if Formula One will take off in the U.S. now that we have a new American team entering in 2026? Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, that's. I think that will help from a fan perspective. But I think that the big boom that I believe that we have seen over the last 7 years, maybe, with Drive to Survive on Netflix was such a big series and such a binge-worthy series for so many people. I think that will be the biggest boom we'll see. I think as far as an American team goes, I think that it will hopefully maintain the momentum because there's an F1 race in Miami. In Austin as well as in Las Vegas. And so that's a lot. That's, 3 races, and I worked them the last 5 years, and they all maintained a lot of good momentum and energy. And so I think it's about keeping that up, and then that will probably slowly accelerate things. But I think the big boom is from something like the Netflix show was a really big deal. And then having these races for people to come to in the United States is good. But I think it won't. I don't think it will have the same impact, but I do believe it will help.
Are there any up-and-coming female drivers that you have your eye on that you're saying, yeah, this is somebody to watch?
Not really. I think that one of the things that F1 tried to do is have what was like F1 Academy, and then, the W Series, and then F1 Academy is what it became. And, I was always a little more controversial in my perspective on all of that. I really believe that you're going to eventually have to race against everyone anyway. And so if you have the opportunity to race against everyone, guys, girls, everyone, that was your best opportunity to build in confidence and belief within other organizations and levels up. But I do believe that it created some opportunities because, let's face it, there's more jobs in racing than just being the driver. You can be the engineer, you can be a strategist, you can go work for F1 itself and sort of critique the racing and create, like you're the penalty, you're the one that's assessing an on-track example of somebody driving poorly or creating an accident. So there's a lot of jobs that you can have within racing, and I think that it creates that. But I don't think there's any one in particular right now that stands out. But that doesn't mean that they're not on their way and right there. I've always said that I don't think racing is inherently a very female thing. As I've described to my friends many times, the style of driving and how I think, even when I'm driving on the road, they're like, yeah, that's not natural. It's very aggressive and very it's very forceful, and so I don't think it will ever just be equal. And I think that, and I've always said that for every 100 drivers that come through that are men, and you find one that's really good, how long does it take for 100 women to come through? And so I think they've tried to create opportunities, but I don't think that's the way. I think the best way is that they start young and they keep their nose to the grindstone and create those opportunities for themselves. But I don't think it will ever just be 50-50. I don't.
A little earlier in the show, we were talking Oscars. F1 is up there. Did you see the film, and what'd you think?
Long pause.
I think that I've watched half of it. I watched half of it the other day, and I watched an hour and a half. I think it's 2.5 hours long. It's not race. It's not exactly it's just not the way it would go. I think that there are people that have seen it that are in racing that think it's good. I personally would just love to see it more fictitious, and just might as well be I'd rather see Talladega Nights than it's probably you watch doctors on Doctor's Show and you're that's not a scalpel.
Whenever you see your industry portrayed in commercials,
it's so hard to. So I mean, I think that it was a really, I think, speaking to the last question the caller had about making the sport more popular, I think those are examples of ways that it creates a buzz and an energy and an interest in the sport by plugging it into a different realm of Hollywood and Brad Pitt, and so there was always a lot of buzz Brad Pitt's at the track. Oh my gosh. So that was really cool. So I think it does a really good job for that. And it's entertaining for many. It's just when you're tapping into the exact thing that I did, it's I don't know, that would happen.
It's too close to home.
Yeah.
But Dr. Lyon, I have to ask you. Obviously, being a race car driver, racing demands a lot of focus under pressure and an intense mindset. Do you find that as somebody who works with people in a certain type of arena, that certain personalities do better in a gym than other personalities?
The first chapter in the Forever Strong Playbook is how to think.
Yeah.
One has to close the delta between the perfect plan and the perfect exercise. They have to close their mind frame. One has to understand there is a framework for thinking, and those that have been the most successful, I still see patients, and I can tell you almost right off the bat where a patient is in their career and in their life based on their framework of thinking. And it is accessible to everybody, but it has to be trained. I'll give you an example. Those that are the most successful, believe it or not, are actually very neutral. They don't get too high and they don't get too low. They turn it on and they turn it off. They are very emotionally agile. And those are learned skills. And to simply give you an example of how someone would do that is to add friction, either it's mental friction, physical friction, or say emotional friction purposefully in your day.
Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier, about exposure. Essentially, we were talking about my profession and my career and developing these skill sets. And it's you don't just flip a switch. You don't just, there's no one magic pill. It's a lot of exposure. Yeah. It didn't mean that I didn't get nervous doing things. It didn't mean things weren't hard. Didn't mean, but the constant exposure will give you the desensitization to it to be able to step into it and be able to have the focus needed. Because I think that's a lot of times what it gets. You can get so out of your head that you can't focus to do things properly. But yeah, I mean, I think, in my experience too, I've had a lot of friends that don't necessarily always train like me, and there are many kinds of gyms, right? There's a lot of different kind of training to do, but I would always say that it's good to sort of push yourself in every way. It's that friction mentally, physically, emotionally that's going to create the growth. And no great things came from comfort zones.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been said a million times.
Celeste said that she was going to join us for a workout.
Has she been there?
Danica, no, we're still
Don't
waiting.
go on Fridays.
Sigma Performance.
Skip Fridays.
They've been texting me, and Dr. Lyon, I gotta say, I will join you at one point. I promise.
I know
it's getting
better
warm
than to
in
make
here.
those
Next Wednesday. Next Wednesday.
Dr. Gabrielle Lyon is a physician and expert in metabolic health and nutrition. Her latest book, The Forever Strong Playbook, a 6-week science-based plan to sharpen your mind, strengthen your body, and get healthy at any age, is out now. And former NASCAR and IndyCar driver Danica Patrick. Thank you both for joining us today.
Never mind all the good recipes in there. I had the breakfast sandwich this morning, and it was delicious.
Amazing. And I want to just end with one thing. Oh, you guys ended. But I'll tell you, at the end of the day, we talk about nutrition, we're talking about protein, but what we're really talking about is building stronger, more resilient humans.
That's it. And again, we've run out of
the
time.
week.
End of the week.
Be back here on a chilly
See you
Monday.
for some push-ups later.
Yeah.
Drive careful out there, everybody.
Quick, get them out of here.
Yes, drive careful. That's coming from Danica Patrick. And again, we want to thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. We will be back Monday. We will continue to monitor the weather. You can go to HoustonPublicMedia.org for the latest information. Stay safe, Houston, and have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston.
Support comes from Stewart PC, a Houston law firm assisting executives and employers with executive employment agreements, litigating executive compensation and non-compete agreements, and management training. More at attorneysforexecutives.com.
Your NPR station, KUHF, Houston.